Yo, what's up everyone? Mike here, hanging out on my mushroom farm. My mushroom farm is also my house, for those of you who didn't know. So I live in the farm upstairs, built the whole thing myself. So we are in this mushroom farm in the middle of the Rocky Mountains that I live in. I do this for a living. Had a lot of people ask me basically how many hours it takes a week to grow all these mushrooms, what it really takes to be profitable, how you could start it as maybe like a job in general. So we're going to go over that today. I'm going to cover it all. I'll tell you guys my experience over the years. Now, I've been doing this almost 10 years as my full-time job, okay? So I'm going to talk to you guys about kind of how I did this, how I started this, and how many hours a week maybe you need to invest if you want to go ahead and do this yourself. Now, I'll also say, if you're into mushrooms and farming, and if you haven't already clicked that subscribe button, make sure you click that subscribe button right now so you get more mushroom and farming videos like this in the future. But anyway, we're going to go ahead, we're going to head out of this grow room. I shouldn't be in here too long yelling without a mask on, but we're going to talk about this. I'm going to cover basically how you can start working for yourself, being a mushroom farmer, how many hours it really takes to accomplish this per week, how many hours I put in, how many hours I put in the beginning, all that good stuff, because it does kind of vary. There's a little bit of nuance to this, so there's a few things we're going to have to go over. Now, just to kind of like get back to the topic at hand about how many hours a week do you have to put in if you just want to kind of start this up, because I feel like that's the best way to talk about this. And then I'll talk to you guys about my experience now, because I put in a serious amount of hours, but it's just because I'm very dedicated to this and it's just what I love to do. So anyway, when I started this, I was around 30 years old, okay, when I first got into this. And I'll just say I had a little bit of savings, okay, so I had a couple $1,000s saved up. And that was kind of like my cushion at the time. I kind of tell anybody, if you're doing something like this, you need to have some type of cushion or something like that, or a source of cash flow. I wouldn't quit my job unless you had some type of cushion or something like that, so keep that in mind. Now, the easiest way to do this, you need to do a little market research yourself before you get down this rabbit hole, but the way I did it is I started selling at farmers markets, and then I ended up selling at the largest farmers market we had in the area, and I basically had 1 day of substrate production, 1 day of substrate inoculation, and then 1 day of sales, okay? So you basically need to devote 3 main days total, I feel like, if you want to be good at this kind of stuff, okay? And it can be a little bit different. Like if you're not going to the farmers markets and you're actually distributing these mushrooms, it could be better or worse for you. So like if you got one outlet that you're taking like a couple 100 pounds to, you could do really good doing that, but that's kind of rare. But I'll say if you're making like a bunch of different routes and stuff, it gets a little more difficult there. But like I said, it comes down to 3 main days: substrate preparation, substrate inoculation, and then sales of some sort. So how long does it take to actually do substrate preparation? Now, typically when I would do this by myself or I had some employees, on average, I'd say you can get it done in about 4 hours for the load that you need to do like one big farmer's market, or just to like start up selling to chefs or some type of food sales outlet. So I would spend 4 hours or so on substrate prep, I'd say on average. You could increase or decrease this time, basically how efficient you are at making it. You could even potentially get a bagger to kind of speed up the process a little bit. I've made baggers in the past to make it more efficient for me. It's been really cool. I've been considering getting a bagger here on the farm or setting something like that up. I'm still trying to decide which one I want, though. I do like the one that the Thor that Mossy Creek had. Man of War, I believe, is the company that actually distributes that now. So I like that one. I think that one's kind of cool. I also think the Fenrir is actually really cool from Main Cap and Stem. If anyone's tuning in and you guys want to like hook Mushroom Mesa Mike up with some type of bagger or give me a deal on it or something, let me know, because I will give you shameless plugs on all your videos. But I've considered getting a bagger even myself just to increase efficiency. But those are the 2 main ones I like. I like Man of War and I like Fenrir. I like what Myers has done, but I just feel like it's kind of expensive for what it is. But some people really like that, so I'm not totally knocking his bagger because he's done a good job with it. But I do think it's a little more pricey, and I think you can get some like more entry-level baggers if you're looking at ways to kind of speed up your process better. But if you like the Myers bagger, I completely understand. So those are a few ways that you could kind of speed up your substrate prep. Like I said, baggers, but you're looking at about putting 4 hours, I'd say, on average on that day. Then you're going to have another day. So you're going to have your inoculation day. So you're going to be in your lab when you're actually inoculating that bulk substrate with your spawn. Typically, I'd say you should give yourself about 4 hours for that too. And That's not too hard. There's a lot of different things you can do to increase efficiency when you're doing inoculation. If you have just one helper, it helps so much. Even same thing when you're making bulk substrate. Like if you can afford an employee, that's one thing that with this whole process, it will help you tremendously. So once you get to the point where you can afford your first employee, they really are super helpful. You just got to make sure you have a highly reliable employee. I've had all sorts of employees, so I've had some really good ones, had some really bad ones. It really depends, yeah, if you get yourself a good employee that can really speed the process up a little bit. Basically, the way I would always do it, when I had a bagger, I would kind of like sit at the bagger, or I would have the employee sit at the bagger, and somebody would basically be making the bags, and then the other person would be loading them in the steamer. And it worked pretty good and streamlined then. And then I'll just say too, like when we were in the lab, the way I would always do it, I was pretty much the one who would always handle the spawn bag, okay? Because that's where you can get contamination. I had an employee that I would have shake the bags too, okay? So and label. Their job was basically shake, label, shelve, okay? So I would be spawning, they would be shaking, labeling, and shelving, and that was kind of like how we did it. They work super good too, and then if they would get kind of like backed up, like if I was working faster than they were, and then sometimes I would go over and start helping them start shaking bags. They do make Manivore. I keep talking about Manivore, but it's a cool little company. They have the bag shaker too, so that's another cool tool somebody could use potentially if you're working alone to kind of speed up your process a little bit. Now, I'll say I'm really picky about how the bags get shaken personally, because I feel like there's such an art to get it mixed right. I've never personally used that Manivore Innovation Shaker, so I can't really tell you guys like how good it works compared to like me personally doing it. But I'll just say, like, when I personally shake bags, you have to make sure you get it distributed properly. I feel like you can like fluff the substrate up just right, and then I kind of like just tamp it a little bit. Some people use a block form. I don't really do that. I just kind of tamp it a little bit and then label the bag, shelve the bag, put it right in incubation. That's kind of how I do it. So anyway, let's kind of talk about now the sales aspect of this. So when I was selling my mushrooms back in St. Louis, selling mushrooms in St. Louis and growing mushrooms, first of all, in St. Louis is like on easy mode compared to out here in Colorado. The environmental conditions, some of them are easier to work with. I feel like some things about the temp are kind of cool, but I'll just say you have to deal with the drier air here. And I'll also say the distribution factor here too, because like I have to deal with mountain ranges and distributing around and through mountain ranges, okay? It's not as easy as just like being on flat land and you can just drive to the largest metropolitan area and dump off all your mushrooms, okay? There's a little bit of strategy that comes into play out here compared to St. Louis. So in St. Louis, I would sell at the largest farmers market they had there. It's actually the oldest farmers market west of the Mississippi, and it was the biggest one there in St. Louis, okay? Pretty much, like I'd say on average throughout the year, if you were to take an average of what someone could make there, you could make roughly about $1,000 a week there, I'd say on average, because you'd have days throughout the winter that were a little bit slower, okay, but you would still do good, and then you'd have days through the summer that would be like, bang on, you're making money. So you don't want to miss those days in the summer. Those are critical days that you have to be there. Just to kind of give you guys an example, I remember I had one day I went there that this was like the day after New Year's or something like that. Blisteringly cold. There was hardly anyone even there because of the holidays. You know, people were partying, but I had this, like, I was actually partying the night before, believe it or not, and I was talking to people there. They were like, "Are you going to go to sell at the farmers market?" And I was like, "Huh." Thought about it a little bit, and I was like, you know what, I should do it. So then I woke up the next day real early, and I tell you the truth though, I didn't get there super early because the weather was so bad. What I would normally do on days like that, I would wait till it warmed up just a little bit, like the sun came up a little bit, and then I would hit up the farmer's market at like 10, and then I'd get out of there typically like 1 p.m. So that's what I did this day. But check this out, I went there in between like 10 a.m., 1 p.m., left there with $600 the day after New Year's. So that was like really cool, like middle of the winter, but my mentality was, I was like, yo, if you go there, whatever people are there, there might not be any other vendors. So whatever people are there are probably going to spend your money or their money with you because you're there. So that was my mentality, and it works super good. Now in the summertime, like some of these markets you can do really, really well. I'll just tell you guys, I made over $1,500 on a Saturday several times just selling at that farmer's market in peak season. I had some, like, I remember my record. I don't know if I want to tell you guys my record, but you can get really good days. I'll just say some of these really good farmers markets, I'll say out there, you can get in the zone from like $1,000 to $2,000. if you're not in that zone, you maybe should look at other farmers markets and just think about what you can actually get or whatever you can attain. Because if you're at a really good farmers market, that's what's possible, is that $1,000 to $2,000 zone. Now, out here, I don't think I'll hit those numbers, okay, because these are just smaller farmers markets. Like, I may hit close to that $1,000 zone at some of these farmers markets for sure, but I think hitting that 2K zone is definitely a little bit tougher, at least. But that's at least like right now, 2025, while I'm making this video. Anything could change. Our money could be worth other amounts in the future, and we might charge more for our mushrooms. So 2,000 might not be much money 20 years from now, okay? So everything could change, but right now in 2025, that's kind of my perception of it. So that's basically it. Like I said, you're gonna have the production day just for making your substrate, you'll have inoculation, and then you'll have typically a day of sales, and then you're gonna have, you got to pick, remember, every single day, typically twice a day, morning and evening. It's kind of like if you got a dairy farm, man, those dairy farmers are milking twice a day. I grew up, one of my best friends was a dairy farmer. My oldest friend actually was a dairy farmer when we were growing up, so I know how these guys are. So I understand what it's like to be around farm guys. So me picking these twice a day is just like those guys milking twice a day. There's zero difference, so you do have to spend a lot of time here, but that picking interval isn't that huge, so it's just a couple hours typically that you might spend throughout the week picking. Same thing for cleaning. You got to make sure your grow room's clean. You're going to be putting in new blocks in there, taking them out. But for these few days of work, pretty much it equates to about 20 hours minimum is what I feel like if you're going to start this seriously as like a part-time gig. And from then on, it only goes up. And I'll just kind of tell you guys, basically for myself right now, because I take this stuff super serious, and this is my first year here. And the first year you're ever starting any business, you need to grind, okay? And honestly, you need to put in a lot of hours, and those hours can't be like crap hours. They need to be like good effort hours, and like they can't just be effort. It needs to be like focused effort where you're actually trying to make progression one way or another, because the first few years when you're starting any business is really tough. So I'll just say in the very beginning, if you want to be successful with it, you have to work hard. I wouldn't think about don't think about what's the minimum you can do. Think about what can you really do to maximize everything, okay? And like, if you have a part-time job, obviously you have a limitation there and you're somewhat constrained. So basically it's going to take about 20 hours, I feel like, if you're going to start something like this up minimum to kind of get rolling at it part-time. Like I said, you're going to have a day where you're making substrate, a day where you're inoculating it, and then a day of sales, basically cleaning and stuff, picking, stuff like that. So 20 hours total you're looking at, and from there it kind of only goes up, and it's kind of like whatever you want to make it. So me here in Colorado, I want to be very successful doing this, so I'm putting in a lot of hours. Honestly, from whenever I wake up in the morning to whenever I go to sleep at night, I'm pretty much always working on something. Typically, I'll take about one day a week or maybe 2 days a week that I might go out and like just do something else, you know what I mean? Go take a hike and just get out of here. Every day I try to like just relax and just take a little time to myself just so I can think. I think a lot. I have a lot of strategizing just myself about how I want to approach different things, whether it's growing or markets or whatever. But I'm putting in a whole lot of hours right now. Now, I will say another way that I'm like spending a lot of my hours now here on the farm is actually making YouTube videos, but I've been wanting to do this for years. It's also great for my business. I'm kind of taking the whole mushroom farming thing and I'm building like my personal brand with it is what I'm doing. That's really what I'm doing here on YouTube. I'm building my own personal brand, and at the same time I'm like teaching, I'm educating, I'm providing value by selling my liquid cultures to you guys. I'm spreading around these genetics everywhere. All you guys are getting awesome commercial mushroom genetics when you purchase liquid cultures from me. I'll say if anybody wants liquid cultures, click down in the description box below. You can have them on my website. I've got some really nice ones over there. They're all commercial varieties, and you can expand them out, grow massive mushrooms. Check out some of my grows. Also, like I said, head over to my Instagram too. That's down in the description box below. You can see some more pictures of some of my grows there. Follow us over there if you're not following me over there already. But that's kind of where I'm spending some of my time now. Like I said, I'm just doing my normal farm work, but plus now I'm kind of marketing on social media, but it's really helping me with my business. It's also fulfilling for me too. Everybody that, not everybody, but a lot of you guys that have purchased cultures from me, I've had several of you now send me pictures of your grows, and I've kind of seen some of the mushrooms already start to grow. I just had some of you guys send me pictures of the hericiums just last night, so that was really awesome. I like seeing those things. It's good and fulfilling to see that, and I'm glad you guys are having great success with my cultures. Now, if any of you guys have any questions on this video or anything like that, just drop it down below in that comment section, and I'll be sure to answer any of your questions. Another thing too, any suggested videos, I'm going to make a video about growing temperature. I've had so many people ask questions about temperature. I really keep it mainly between 50 and 70, but I can make a really good video on temp, so I'm going to talk about the temp. Also, pounds of week, or how many pounds a week am I growing? I had a subscriber ask me that, and I'm doing like a ramp up right now, so I'm going to kind of make a video just talking to you guys about that. But thanks for tuning in today. Hopefully you guys found this video helpful and informative. If you did, please drop this video a like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. But that's all I got for you on this one, and I will catch you guys on the next one.